What's up, everyone? Welcome to episode 47 of Podcast Reload. We are a general gaming podcast by Sifted.net subscribers. Sifted.net, check it out. It is an awesome site. It's totally worth chucking them a buck on Patreon. End of the plug now. Sifted.net subscribers, where we invite a community guest onto the show to talk about the games industry in all its weird ways. I am your host, Evan Piotrowski. Vin is, he's busy, and we'll get him back on when we can, but for now I'm going to man the ship. So joining us today are not one, but two Sifted community guests. Tom, aka Washed123.
Hey guys, what's up?
And Wilson.
Hello once again.
Once again, yeah, both of you guys have been on the show three times, maybe?
This is number 4 for me.
Number 4?
3, I think, for me.
Yeah, so, we had a bit of an emergency guest situation. I think FSB Elston, who's been on the show several times, couldn't make it, and so I jumped into the comments on Sifted.net under our Podcast Reload thread, and I saw that Wilson had previously said that he could make this recording. So I just asked him, hey, can you jump on? And he was kind enough to bail us out of a problem in the last second. So Wilson, thank you for doing that.
My pleasure. Always happy to come on the podcast.
Awesome. All right, so moving on, we are going to try a new game. Now, this is similar to Save or Kill, but I'm going to call this game the yes or no game. So I'm going to give you a single thing, or a situation, person, game, genre, anything of that sort, and you can only answer yes or no. And at first I was thinking answering no erases said thing from history, but I'm just going to say just opinion-wise. Yes or no. So we're dealing in binary today, all right? There's only 2 choices. So listen carefully and answer quickly. All right, here we go. Half-Life.
Yes.
Yes.
Nintendo Switch.
Yes.
Yes.
Xbox versions of games.
Yes.
Yes.
New Metroid game.
No.
Yes.
New 2DS XL.
Yes.
No.
Shigeru Miyamoto.
Yes.
Yes.
Pineapple on pizza.
No.
No.
Assassin's Creed franchise.
Yes.
Yes.
Jack and Daxter.
No.
No.
Mario.
Yes.
Yes.
Whole wheat bread.
No.
No.
What? Zelda.
Yes.
Yes.
Fallout 1.
Yes.
No.
Sonic being good.
Yes.
Yes.
Sonic being bad.
No.
No.
Bagels.
Yes.
Yes.
Rise Against.
Yes.
No.
Candy at the checkout counter.
No.
Yes.
Snickers.
Yes.
No.
Reese's Peanut Butter Cups.
No.
Yes.
Should I open my amiibo?
No.
No.
Are you excited for Zelda DLC this winter?
No.
No.
Protest the Hero.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for playing. Yes or no?
Did
I think
I win?
we might yeah, I think you... Wait, hold on. No, you both said, no to whole wheat bread. What's wrong with you animals?
What? Why would you want whole wheat bread? I don't go out into like a field and just start munching on wheat.
Maybe I like it so much because it's so hard to find in Japan. Like, you go to the store, it's all white. It's all white bread. I think I went shopping the other day. I'm like, man, I wish I could have some whole wheat bread.
I didn't know. But yeah, we have all kinds of bread here.
Oh no, there is a single kind of bread in Japan, and it's white bread.
Awful.
And then you look at the ingredients, and it's like, wheat, and then the next ingredient is always sugar. It's like,
oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, there's no variety here, which is weird because Japanese people tend to have like healthier diets, but then they just resort to like the worst, like Wonder Bread, terrible bread.
Oh no, no.
But anyways, thank you for playing Yes or No. Maybe we'll bring this back. I kind of like that. That was interesting.
Yeah, that was intense.
Yeah, it was intense. I love that my phone makes that sound when I put the timer on. Just like immediately start sweating, like like any hard question, like and just jump out your window. It's like an easier choice than saying yes or no. Moving on to what we've been playing this week. So let's start off with Tom. What have you been playing?
I've been revisiting yet again Half-Life 2, the entire series, Planets, and also Dead Space. Two games I'm trying to do a retrospective that I've been working on, I think, even since the last time I was on here.
Oh, wow. Big undertaking.
Yeah, so I'm trying to get footage for those, but I've been replaying all those games.
So, Dead Space, what are your thoughts on Dead Space as a series? Which game do you like the best, and what does it do better than the other games?
I like the first one, I think, the best. I haven't actually played 3 and 2. I haven't finished yet. But I think 1's still probably my favorite, just because I think it really did the atmosphere thing right. I think it nailed the making things scary, not just because they were gory or jumped out at you, but just because you generally felt unsettled by half of it. And 2 did an okay job with the scares, but I think it pushed a little bit too much into action, shock territory.
Right. I like 2. I think I like 2 the best, and then 1. But yeah, I think 1 was a bit more of a pure horror experience, and the addition of stuff in 2, I guess it's arguable whether they should have added stuff. I think they could have kept it as is. You'll have to remind me, did you have the kind of the telekinesis power where you could cut the arms and legs off of enemies and then use their legs to kill them? Shoot it back at them?
In the first one, kinesis.
Kinesis.
I don't think I've tried to shoot their arms back, but you could use objects and stuff.
Okay, I think that they added that in 2, and that was one thing I really, really liked, because ammo was so scarce. It was you felt really good when you came into a situation where you had a couple necromorphs coming at you, and you did your best to not use ammo by cleverly tearing their appendages off and shooting them back at them. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like 3, actually. I really like 3. It's a very different game, but I think there is still a lot of horror there. It definitely is more of an action game, even more so than 2, especially because you can essentially make your own gun by cobbling pieces together, and you can put a spike on and then give it electric powers and then give it area of effect, and that does not sound like Dead Space, But I remember I created a really awesome gun that just absolutely destroyed necromorphs. You could argue the whole point of Dead Space is, you're never supposed to feel safe, and it's never supposed to be awesome to take out a bunch of necromorphs. But I kind of enjoyed it. I think the ending was really, really dumb. But I thought the game itself was pretty fun.
Do you think it's a situation, Evan, where if it weren't called Dead Space 3, because I know that game gets a lot of hate, but if that had just been a new intellectual property, do you think people would have loved it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so. I think the action is good. There are some really scary parts in it. There's optional areas that you can go in by underground train, and they're the hardest sections of the game, and you keep going down these corridors, and at the end you get a really awesome loot, but you have to do you have to survive for a couple minutes after these waves of necromorphs come at you, and it's pretty scary, but also really satisfying when you get away by the skin of your teeth. So that stuff is all really, really fun, and I think the gunplay is really, really good. But yeah, maybe it would have done better if it wasn't called Dead Space, because it does feel like a different enough game, and it's co-op. I played it by myself. I didn't play co-op, but that would be weird, I think, in a Dead Space game to play co-op. I don't know.
I think it could work. I mean, if like the thing is, I mean, part of what makes one work is the isolation of it, but I think there's room to have a horror co-op game if it's done right. I think, especially in the Dead Space universe, I think they easily could have done that. But I mean, again, I haven't played enough of 3. I've barely have played it, like maybe 5 minutes total of 3, to really say anything about it. But it looks, from what I've seen, like it's a little bit too heavy on the action and it with horror elements. Like it's just trying to be a shooter that's scary rather than a scary movie where sometimes you shoot stuff.
Right. And yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. It definitely is a more action-oriented game. Action first, horror second type deal. Oh, cool. Well, I'm looking forward to... I would ask you about Half-Life 2, but I think we're going to bring that up a little later in the show. Hint, hint.
Possibly.
Possibly. No promises. But, well, I'm looking forward to the videos. It sounds like a really, really huge task. So, yeah, looking forward to it. All right, so moving on to Wilson. What have you been playing?
So I recently started up Amnesia: The Dark Descent. That was released for PS4 relatively recently, and then it went on sale not too long ago to pick that up. I just got through the section, or maybe it repeats, but where you are in the water and you have to stay on these boxes, or this invisible creature will kill you. And so far, I'm really enjoying it. It definitely delivers its story, in a very through documents and whatnot. It's not fed to you. You really have to sort of you decide how much you want to pay attention to it. And I haven't really run into very many enemies at this point. I feel like they're sort of building it up to some extent. But I just remember hearing about how terrifying that game is, and I'm a huge horror fan. So I haven't played Dead Space, but so badly do I want to play that. So I've only been I put probably an hour and a half, couple hours into it, so I haven't formed too much of an opinion of it. But a lot of the game is you have a health meter and also a sanity meter. I don't actually know what happens if your sanity meter depletes completely, because it hasn't happened to me yet. But if you stay in the dark for too long,
right?
Yeah, something. I guess maybe it probably makes you more susceptible to enemy attacks or something like that. But if you're in the dark, you lose your sanity slowly. So you have to maintain light of some kind. And you have a lantern, but the oil is finite and goes away pretty quickly. And then you find tinder boxes, which you can use to. It's a one-time use to light a torch or a candle somewhere in the environment. So it's interesting in that it pretty much always pushes you forward. You can't really stop to investigate very much in the game because a lot of the areas are dark. So the most panic-inducing feeling that I've gotten so far is just the fact that if I stay in this dark room too much, I'm gonna die. Which is not to say that the game is doing a bad job of scaring me in other ways, but I think they do a very good job of maintaining a sense of urgency, which is pretty interesting.
It's funny to me how, like, in lots of horror games, and especially some that's come out in recent years and first-person games, it's like, what world do we live in where, like, batteries last 2 minutes, or, like, oil doesn't burn for hours? Like, what was that game? I know the name of the DLC, the Whistleblower. You go
Outlast?
Outlast. It's like what batteries do you have? Like
bad battery there.
Like, what? I don't know what year that takes place, but I imagine it's like a lithium battery. Like, did he just not power it? Like, that thing should last the entire game, like a solid like 6-7 hours.
I was also wondering why batteries were strewn
necessarily.
around an insane asylum.
I mean, well, yeah, that's a little, but I mean, with camera batteries, I mean, especially if you're actually recording, and especially if you're using that low light, you're basically going to drain it within, most will probably last maybe 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
Okay.
Unless you have like an extended battery.
Right. Okay, yeah, maybe, but still, like it should probably last a bit longer. I mean, I'm obviously I'm half joking. I just think it's funny how they rely on something that's not necessarily that realistic. But so the Wilson, you think it does horror well and you're having a good time?
Yeah, I definitely need to
Okay.
dig into it more and sort of get the real gist. I don't think I've quite hit the real gameplay flow yet, but
Okay.
so far I'm enjoying it.
And all right, so I guess wrapping up with what I've been playing, I bought Metroid: The Return of Samus. Samus Returns. What is it called?
I think yeah, Samus Returns.
Samus Returns. Yeah. Okay, I'm a massive Metroid fan. Super Metroid is like top 3 games of all time for me. Zero Mission, Fusion. I have never played any of the Prime games. I do not want to play a Metroid game in first person. It's just a weird thing I have. So they took it back to old schools, old school Metroid 2.5D. It's Metroid. You're in on a alien planet, exploring caverns and different like areas full of various ecology, and getting upgrades and finding out secrets and killing Metroids, of course. One thing I really don't like the kind of low poly like 3DS graphics. I'm just not a fan of it. Same as Link Between Worlds. The aliasing and all that stuff. It looks better on screen than it does in the videos. I will say. But one thing that I didn't know how to feel about was the parrying system. I don't know. Have you guys seen the videos?
I have, yeah. It seems pretty almost overpowered. I don't know. Is there a limit to how you can do it, or is it just you just need to be really on with the timing?
Well, there's like a short cooldown time. Like you can't just mash it and he's not going to auto. She kind of, so basically like you hit one of the buttons to like swing her hand up and you can use it to either like knock an enemy back or parry at the right time. And having played it, it's awesome. Like the second I started using it, I'm like, oh, I totally get this. And it's just one of those things that just adds another weapon to her arsenal. Where think about like Super Metroid or some of the other Metroid games, like if an enemy was too close to you that you couldn't like shoot it, you kind of had to like adjust where you were and like reposition yourself to attack it. But with the parrying thing, if they're close enough and you can't really hit them with a shot, you can just you can melee strike them. And one reason the parrying system works so well is that it's really easy to get good at. It's really, really useful because if you parry an enemy's attack, it opens them up to get you almost auto kill them basically. And also if you parry, then once you kill them, you'll get like bonus life or energy or missiles than you would just killing them outright. So yeah, I beat the Game Boy game back in the day. And it's cool to go back to, but it does feel like a new game. It does not just feel like an old Metroid game that they slapped 3D graphics onto. It feels like a brand new experience. And whether or not I am 100% happy with the game graphically, the fact that we have a new Metroid game in the style of the original games is I'm not going to complain about that. And I think I'm like 10 Metroid in. There's 40 to beat, and I'm having a really good time. It's definitely worth it.
Did they add any like literal new areas, or did they just sort of add different features like the parry system and whatnot?
The game looks completely different.
Really?
I for some reason I brought a Metroid 2, The Return of Samus with me to Japan. Like I have the Game Boy cartridge. I don't know why. But I actually booted it up on my Game Boy Advance yesterday to play around with it, and the game looks totally different. Like, it's essentially a new game. Like, they've totally mapped out different areas that they look different. Like, because the original is a Game Boy game, there was like no backgrounds. It just kind of looked like you were going through like rock caverns the entire game. Whereas this, like, you're outside, you're inside. There's places with like trees, there's waterfalls in the background. I will say the 3D, while I don't really like 3D on the 3DS, the depth of field is pretty cool, and there's a lot of interesting things going on in the background. There's like creatures like drinking like water, like out of like a pool of water that's collected in like a cavern, and some other stuff like that. So it looks completely different. And yeah, it's great. I'm gonna play it after this podcast. I'm having a really good time. But moving on to our topics of the show. Since we have two guests, I am awarding the guests the topic. It also helps me because I don't have to think of one myself. So thank you both. So let's move into the topics of the show. Let's start with Tom. Tom, what is your topic of the show?
So with the recent, fairly recent, not leaking, but the guy originally from Valve who posted the story that was supposed to be Half-Life 3 Episode 3, but was all, I don't know if any of you read it, but it was all gender bent and things were changed around, but essentially it was what Half-Life 2 Episode 3 was supposed to be. At this point, we could basically assume that the game is canceled. It's not coming out. I mean, it's been 10 years since Episode 2, and it's been about 3 or 4 years since they've even mentioned that they plan on working on it. So my question would basically be, if you played the games or if you know anything about the series, where do you think it was going to go? Where did you want to see the series go?
I guess I'll start off. So we talked a little bit about this before we recorded the podcast, but I played Half-Life 1 for the PS2, and I think, Tom, you had told me it's a terrible port.
It's a pretty bad port, yeah.
It's a pretty bad port. And I never finished it. I don't know. It got like pretty hard later in the game, and whatever, new games came out, and I moved on to other games. But my friend lent me the Orange Box, which is like a collection of Valve games that had Half-Life 2 and Episodes 1 and Episodes 2 on it. I didn't have a beefy PC when I was younger, and the Half-Life 2 kind of passed me by, and I don't know, like, I just wasn't really interested because I thought the first game was so-so, at least in my experience. And then I got the Orange Box, and I played it, and I loved all three, well, Half-Life 2 and Episodes 1 and Episodes 2. I really, really liked it, and I was surprised. It's one of those things that's like, oh, wow, like, yeah, everyone's been talking about these games for years, and then you finally get your hands on it, and like, oh, this is an awesome game. I don't know why it took me so long to play it. So I was looking forward to a Half-Life 3. Like, I was invested enough in the story, and of course, Half-Life 2 ends on a big cliffhanger, so everyone wanted to know exactly what happened. It seems like things were leading towards, like, the end of the Half-Life story, at least, Gordon Freeman's and Alex's story. Is that her name?
Yeah, Alex Vance.
Yeah, she's cool. I always liked her. So, like, I kind of wanted to see the end of the story. I would have hoped that Half-Life 3 ended with, like, we get to know who the man in the suit is. Obviously, I'm not like a big Half-Life fan because I should know his name. Yeah, yeah, G-Man.
He's just the G-Man. So.
The G-Man. Okay, I was gonna say that. I was going to say G-Man. I'm like, wait, that's not his name. And then yeah, so
that is.
I kind of wanted to see like who the G-Man is like an alternate reality, Gordon Freeman or whatever. Who does he work for? What's his deal? That type of thing. I thought that would have been. I wanted to see the big reveal of that. So I guess, Tom, I'll throw this back at you. For me, it seems like Half-Life 3 was going to end with the ultimate fight between Gordon Freeman and like the head of the aliens that have invaded Earth. I think Half-Life as a series could have done better than like just defeating the big bad, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's one of those things, it's like, well, although that seems like an easy conclusion to a story, I would hope it would be something different than that. Just a bit more clever or a bit more story driven and not just shooting your gun at this creature to end the war or whatever. Like, I don't know, how did you want to see the series end?
The thing is, I don't necessarily know how I wanted to see it end, but they were going in a really cool direction with the ending of an episode, and the whole reason why Portal came out within the Orange Boxes is actually tied into the Half-Life universe, and that's basically where I thought it was going to be. Was I thought they would continue both series, and they would eventually. I thought Portal was going to be like a lead up to Half-Life 3, essentially, or Half-Life 2 Episode 3, because 2 ends with. Spoilers if you haven't played this 10-year-old game. It basically ends with everything goes to hell, and they go and plan on searching out the ship, the Borealis, and that's kind of they were supposed to go into like the Arctic or whatever, and they get on a helicopter and go off to find that because Eli Vance got massacred basically in this huge shocker of an ending. But where I was hoping it would go was basically that they would search it out, that you'd have these cool Arctic levels that you'd get to play through, and I was really looking forward to some of that stuff. And I thought basically we were going to see how they got the Portal technology, and I thought they were going to use the Portal technology basically that Aperture Science was developing to take down the Combine and eventually find the whoever the big bad is, whoever running it. So I was really looking forward to seeing that and to see who the G-Man. I mean, that's the big mystery of the whole series is who's the G-Man? Who is he behind all of this?
Yeah, like what are the G-Mans or their boss or whoever the organization? What are their ultimate motives, right?
Yeah, exactly. And who? Because there's all theories about it, like that he is an alternate version of Gordon Freeman, or he's Gordon Freeman from the future, especially because of his speech patterns and the fact that they look similar.
Oh, is that a theory? Like this like I liked Half-Life 2, and I mean I explained it earlier, but I don't know a lot about like fan theories, or like I've never been in like Half-Life forums and stuff, so I'm not familiar with a lot of this information. But
it's a legit theory of
okay. I didn't know
that. Yeah, I don't know when it like started circulating, if it was with Half-Life 2 or if it was not until like episode 1 or episode 2, but like that is a theory that people have, is that they're somehow linked and together. But and the whole also the other thing is with the portals, because that was a huge thing, was the fact that after episode 1 ends and the Citadel collapses, there's this huge open portal just in the sky basically.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's been a while since I played it, but it's ringing some bells.
Yeah, so there's the whole sideline thing with the with portals that I was looking forward to too, because I thought basically I figured they were going to go somewhere with like the gravity gun, except you get like a portal gun mixed with a gravity gun kind of thing. We get something like that.
Yeah, that I mean, like where you thought the Half-Life 3 was going to go with the merging of Portal and Half-Life, I think that actually sounds pretty cool. Like that's a good idea. I'd take that. I don't know, Wilson. I'm guessing you've never played any Half-Life games.
I have not, unfortunately, okay. Which I mean, I'm assuming means I'm missing out. I would ask though. I guess, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like I guess, especially in Tom's direction, you're satisfied with what the story has been thus far, and more so than like, well, give me another one to kind of fix or improve upon the elements of the prior games. You just really want to know what the ultimate conclusion is. At this point, if Half-Life 3 were announced tomorrow, do you think it would just be sheer celebration on your part, or is there some part of you at this point that says maybe it's better to just, let these fan theories, continue to fester and manifest themselves, and maybe it's better to just let it go? I mean, I know you mentioned sort of a Duke Nukem Forever situation.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, honestly, if it was to be continued, I would want to see a Half-Life movie done and directed by David Lynch.
Wow,
that's where I would like to see it go. But
hey, I'd put a lot of stuff in David Lynch's hands. I'm not going to fight you on seeing what he would do with something like Half-Life.
I think that Half-Life would be perfect for him to handle. But as far as if they were to announce the game itself, it depends what it is they announced. It really would depend on what the actual storyline was going to be, or what they were doing with it, for me to make a judgment on that, because I can't. I like what they've done so far. Story wise, it's been I think it's still one of the best gaming stories, period. Just because there's so much underneath the surface and to it, and that the characters themselves are so interesting. They each have their own personalities and their own stories, and they don't feel like none of the characters in the universe feel like they're just throwaway characters. Like they all feel integral to the actual story itself. Even like the aliens, the side character aliens still feel like something. So I don't know. It would really depend on what they announced, but I would be worried that it would be a Duke Nukem situation where it's just the expectations are too high.
Right. And I think, I don't know if anyone can make a satisfying conclusion, just because, that's like every year that passes is more. I mean, is there more expectation? I think at this point, at least, we're talking about this now because of that story had been leaked, and I think people are just kind of now coming to terms with the fact that it's probably not going to be a Half-Life 3. I mean, I'm sure there's people that are like, I've kind of realized that three years ago or whatever, but it just kind of seems like now, like if they made a 3, I would be really excited, but I'm not going to hold my breath anymore. I mean, is that how you feel?
Yeah, I'm pretty much, but the thing is, if they announced it, I mean, I'd go out and get a Half-Life tattoo, and I'd be, running in the streets screaming about it, so the hype level's still there. Right.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I would love to see it as well, and one reason I think, it's going to be a different team, it's going to be all these things, but I liked Half-Life 2, and I thought, like, Episode 1 and 2, like, I think I might have even liked them better. I think they did more, it's nice to see, like, oh, Half-Life 2 is great, and then they, like, do Episode 1 and 2, it's like, oh, these are equally as good, if not better, in a lot of ways, and they varied up the gameplay loop enough to make it feel fresh and interesting, so it's good to see they didn't just, like, rest on their laurels with what they did in the original Half-Life 2.
Yeah, and I mean, that's why when they started doing the episodic gaming, that's part of the reason why that format was so good and to hear about, because especially, like, so Episode 1, at least to me, as much as I love it, it kind of felt like Half-Life 2 deleted scenes. It felt a lot like that game, versus then they went back and they took Half-Life 2 Episode 1, they took Half-Life 2 Episode 2, and that feels like a completely different game. That feels like a sequel in a lot of ways. But the fact they were able to change it in that development cycle, so it's not like we waited 4 years to get another game.
Right. Yeah. I would like to eventually see a Half-Life 3. One thing, okay, I'll end on this note, at least, with if they do Half-Life 3, I would love to have an extended section of the game that is as terrifying as fucking Ravenholm?
Yeah, a Ravenholm.
The Ravenholm section of Half-Life 2 is. And by the way, those black head crabs, I don't know what they're called.
No, they're I just call them the blackhead crabs, or black spider crabs. Yeah.
Yeah, they are probably the most terrifying enemy in any game I've ever played.
Nightmare fuel.
Nightmare fuel. So, Wilson, all right, we should probably give this about 1 or 2 more minutes. We'll end on talking about head crabs, as it is a hallmark of the series. So basically, you know the head crabs, Wilson, right? They like attach to the head or replace the head, and then they control their bodies.
I can definitely picture those in my mind.
Yeah, they're like the skin-colored ones. They're like really fucking gross. So in part 2, they have black head crabs that are bigger, much bigger, and what they do is in one hit they bring you down to one health, one health point. And there's a part. So basically, Ravenholm is a section of City 17. Am I doing okay, Tom?
Yeah. I don't know if Ravenholm is necessarily part of City, but it's part of the outside world. Essentially, yeah. So
basically, Ravenholm is fallen. That area of the city is blocked off and completely overrun with head crabs and like all sorts of nightmares. So no one goes there anymore. Unfortunately for Gordon Freeman, you have to make your way through it to get to another section, like meet up with the resistance or whatever. So you have to go into this completely barred off section that is overrun with head crabs, and it is like the most terrifying area of the game, and it plays like a horror game. Speaking of horror games, and you'll be going through. You've got to go through a really cramped room. You got to go through a building, and you're in this building, and you go into the next room, and then in the shadows you hear this horrifying, gross clicking, and it's like, oh, and then this giant black head crab comes at you and hits you, and you're down to 1 hit point, and then if it hits you again, you're done. And it's just like, it's the most terrifying thing. Like, my heart has stopped a couple times. It's like I loathe going into buildings for fear that there is a black head crab in there.
Yeah, it's funny how like in addition to scary design of creatures in games, that the extent to which you refer to them also correlates directly to how much damage that they can do to you.
Oh, and that is part of why they're so terrifying. Is
Mm-hmm. But it's interesting, like,
because they don't kill you.
Yeah, they don't kill you.
That's the thing.
That's I don't know. It's I mean, I would love to play the series, and it's interesting. I mean, it really is a testament, because I couldn't tell you a game that has more of a, more like, would get more of a reaction from a crowd at E3 if it were announced. And if for some reason this were a surprise announcement at PlayStation's conference or something, I think, you mentioned going out and running in the streets, Tom. I probably would too, and I don't even care. Like, I don't, I mean, I care, but like, I've never even played the games, but it's so, it's become, such an anticipated, it's never going to happen type thing, that if it were to be announced, even I would lose my mind at this point.
I mean, once Shenmue 3 comes out, there's no excuses. Like, we'd be in a post Final Fantasy 15, The Last Guardian, and Shenmue 3 world. I mean, there's only one game left. It's Half-Life 3.
Yeah. I mean, what else is there?
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Hopefully it happens, but none of us are holding our breaths. Breaths, right? That's the plural. But I think all of us would be very excited if they did, regardless of whether or not we've played the games. All right. Yeah. Cool. Oh man, blackhead crabs. Those things are scary. All right, so let's switch topics to Wilson. What is your topic of the show?
Well, that was a good pun if it was intentional, but I wanted to check in on the Switch, because I was in trying to figure out a topic for the show. I realized it's been about 6 months since it launched, at least in North America. And we also just had the Nintendo Direct, which I think I didn't see it in its entirety, but pretty heavily focused on Switch over 3DS. Just sort of the state of the console and what they need to be doing, what they're doing right, what they're doing wrong, what they should be doing going forward. I guess the first thing I wanted to ask just to both of you is, do you even own a Switch? Because I do. I currently do not own a Switch.
I do not own a Switch.
Yeah, I don't. I don't, because there's one or two things that would make me run out and get a Switch, and they haven't done them yet.
Half-Life 3?
Yes, that is
on the Switch.
That Half-Life 3 Switch exclusive. I would buy every Switch I could get my hands on. So basically, the way I would, what would make me run out and buy a Switch would be if, and this is actually has to do with why I feel the Switch is successful. But for me, what I would buy it for would be if they started treating it more like a mobile, like a successor to the 3DS, and we started seeing those mobile series kind of transferred over, and obviously upgraded and everything, but just the series themselves. And then if they started putting like classic games on there, if they brought a virtual console that actually made sense, and started working the way it should, like, if we got all Game Boy Advance games and Game Boy games and N64 and whatever else on there, those two things would probably make me actually get a Switch.
Right. And I think, well, for me, Tom, I agree with you. That is one thing that if they would have done that earlier, and they haven't even done it yet, I probably already would have bought one. But when Mario Odyssey comes out, I'm going to buy a Switch. And actually, in hindsight, I should have bought a Switch at launch for Zelda. I wasn't one of those people that was like super excited about Zelda. Like, oh my god, like buying a Switch is worth playing one game type of person. But I like Zelda, so I picked it up for the Wii U, and 120 hours and 125 hours and 120 shrines later, I wish I just would have bought it for the Switch. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to get one when Odyssey comes out, if I can fucking find one, because they're having issues in Japan just as they are in other territories, where I've at my local shop, I've never seen one available. I pop in there probably once or twice a week, and I've never seen a Switch in stock there ever, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. But if I can find that Mario Odyssey bundle, like, I like those deep red controllers, but it doesn't even come with a physical game. I'm like, I don't know. This is all like very like personal stuff. It has nothing to do with like the success of the system. But yeah, like, I'm going to get one. Hopefully next month if I can find one. Well, so Wilson, what are you holding out for? Are you interested in purchasing a Switch?
Absolutely. And my whole life, I've been, up until a couple years ago, I've been a Nintendo guy, and I think I mentioned this about some game or something, but if you had told me 5 years ago, Wilson, you're not going to get the next Nintendo system at launch, I'd say, damn it, how do I die? Like, I would just, there's no way I'm not going to get this.
Yeah, same thing happened to me, by the way.
Oh, did it? But
yeah, I didn't have a Wii. I didn't own a GameCube or a Wii, and I got my Wii U for free. That's the only reason I have one.
Mm-hmm. So I've become so enraptured with PlayStation 4, and I'm just drowning in games that I want to play. I mean, that's the reason I bought the thing to begin with, because I was missing out on so much, and it turns out I was missing out on a lot, and I've gone from, as a Nintendo console exclusively owning Nintendo systems, I've had so many game droughts, and I have just been in a flood of games from the moment I bought a PS4 in June of 2015. I bought it during E3 because that was the time where I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore. To September of 2017, it has never stopped, and I will never catch up. But at the same time, Nintendo, they always have that way of, they show you this game and you go, ooh, that looks pretty fun, Nintendo, and then they show you two more and you're like, ooh, okay, all right, Nintendo, and suddenly Breath of the Wild's out, Splatoon 2 is out, Mario Odyssey's coming, Xenoblade 2 is coming, other games are going to come, and Metroid Prime 4 has been announced. Personally, I absolutely love the Metroid Prime series. And you go, damn it, Nintendo, you've done it again. So for me, could I go out? I mean, I'm with you, Evan. I like, when I go grocery shopping, I go at, I do it at Walmart, and I always go to their electronics section, and I do not see Switches in stock. So, right. If I could find one, I could afford it. I could buy one, but it's really more of a time issue for me personally. So it's one of those things that I cannot see myself not getting it at some point in the future. But as of right now, no. And another thing I wanted to ask is why is the Switch successful? And I'll just lead off of what I think personally. And it sounds kind of more negative than it is, but part of the reason is that if you compare it directly to Wii U, given that came right before, I think Nintendo, from a marketing perspective and just from a business perspective, I think they made great games on the Wii U. I have a Wii U. I love the experiences, but I think Nintendo did pretty much every single thing wrong that they could have possibly done with that system. Horrific.
From the get-go.
I mean,
that
yeah.
initial... Do you remember? I mean, everyone's talked about it, but like that initial commercial to promote the Wii U is terrible at conveying to the audience like what the Wii U was. It was confusing from the start.
Absolutely. Like even before it was out, E3 2011, they showed that thing, and they showed the system sort of on a table in the background when they had this sizzle reel of stuff, and even I was like, wait a second, is this a new system? And I had to wait until like Adam Sessler interviewed Reggie Fils-Aimé, and he was like, yeah, it's new. I was like, thank God, I thought this was just a Wii controller. But outside of calling it like, you know, the Nintendo Dick or something, I really don't think they could have come up with a worse name than Wii U. I mean, that is just an abominable name. Maybe that would have done better. I don't know.
I think they were banking on people who had the Wii, who loved the Wii, especially when you're talking about... I mean, the part of the reason why the Wii itself was so successful wasn't because of hardcore gamers or anything like that. It was because of the families and, you know, I hate to use this term, but like soccer moms who went out and bought it for their kids and stuff. I mean, that was part of why it was so successful. And I think that they were hoping that by calling it the Wii U, that they would build a similar feeling for them. So that way people would look at it and say, oh, this is another Wii. So they would buy it for that reason. But I think the problem was, like you said, people didn't know what it was, that it was a new system, so they probably looked at it and said, "Oh, Wii U, it's just I already have a Wii. Why would I buy another one?"
Yeah, I think you're 100% right on that, Tom. And
well, they read that entire situation of wrong. They analyzed what made the Wii successful. They looked at it the completely wrong way, and the Wii U is proof of that.
Yeah, and I do think that the name Wii was a very, very good name. You know, I mean, it's encompassing of what the system is about, playing together. I mean, it's a weird name. It caught people's attention. But I think sort of the mistake that they made is that, you know, Nintendo is the company, but, you know, PlayStation and Xbox, those are branches of Microsoft and Sony, or Sony and Microsoft respectively, I guess. And so they kind of got this sub-brand going with the Wii, and they proceeded to release the Wii Zapper and the Wii Balance Board and the Wii, whatever the hell, Wii Speak. I mean, they had so many different things, and Wii U, to the layperson, as weird as it is for us, because we get it, because we know games, but Wii U, why is that not another peripheral? So I think that was a huge issue, and just a terrible name, and it's very clear. When it comes to the Switch, it is not called the Switch. It's called the Nintendo Switch. I think Nintendo said, "Okay, we need to remind people that we are Nintendo, and let's."
Yeah, it's Bram Stoker's Dracula. If you just say Dracula, it's just some guy that like sucks blood.
Mm-hmm.
That was a terrible analogy, by the
way. It's funny how much they loved Wii. I mean, when they caught lightning in a bottle, they loved it. But after, I mean, I'm sure they couldn't get rid of that moniker fast enough. And I would go as far to say that I think it's a possibility that Switch was like Wii U Pro or Wii U X. Like, had that system done better, a few years later they would have said, hey, guess what? Here's Wii U, but now you can take it anywhere. And when they realized the Wii U was, you know, tanking, relatively speaking, they said, you know what? Scrap that. This is the next system. Get rid of Wii. Never say that word again. Whoever named that thing Wii U, I don't. However many people that had to go through to get, blows my mind. But you know, I think they said maybe we should. I mean, I think it may speak to the fact that the Switch doesn't really, and of course, Nintendo hasn't been all about this in recent generations. But it may speak to the relatively similar power, power of the system. Like, this wasn't really meant to come out so soon. This was sort of a okay, we use a disaster from a sales perspective. We got to do something. Let's just make what we were going to make, sort of that PS4 Pro, that Xbox One X upgrade. Let's just make that the new thing and get the hell out of this Wii U business.
Yeah, I'm glad that it's like basically the Switch is kind of like how do they say it? Keeping, this is not how you say this. Keeping good on the promises of the Wii U.
Making
Like
good on the promises.
Making good, yeah.
Making good. Thank you very much. Wow. Your host, Evan Piotrowski. But yeah, it was like they had a good idea. It was just it was 2012, and like the iPad wasn't even that popular in Japan yet, and it's like they already had the idea and the technology of what they were gonna do for the Wii U in place, and then it came out, and then like everyone like migrated to phones and like touchpad gaming and stuff. It just wasn't the tech wasn't there. It wasn't good enough. The gimmick wasn't good enough to be enticing to anyone outside the 13 million people that bought a Wii U. And it seems like the Switch was making good on the promises of what the Wii U could have been. Like, it's like, oh, you can actually like take this controller, and I can like go in the bedroom. It's like, oh no, oh well, yeah. If my bedroom is like a meter away from my system, yeah. It just wasn't there, and finally it's like the Switch does what the Wii U wanted to do, and also they marketed it like perfectly with the initial showing of the Switch last September or October, I want to say, and they did not make the same mistake with the PR for what the system is and what it does. It was very clear from the get-go what the system did, and yeah, like that alone, it's like, oh, a console you can take on the go. That's great. I get it. I totally get it. Or whatever you want to call it. They say it's a console. Some people might say it's a handheld that's also a console. Whatever. But yeah, and go ahead, Tom.
Well, I was gonna say that was part of like what I said about the two things. Is that's I think one of the only things that's holding the Switch back is I don't think people understand what it is. Is it a console, or is it the successor to the 3DS? Because everyone knows that it's always been, here's Nintendo's console, here's the new Game Boy, as your mobile platform. But now we get the Switch, where it's kind of like these two have converged into one, and I don't necessarily know that they're doing a good job as far as letting people know as far as how they're treating it.
Right, is it a handheld first and a console second, or a console first and a handheld second?
Yeah,
type of thing?
More or less, yeah. And it feels like it's more the console, because I don't know what the battery life is, but people are saying it's not great. It's kind of like first generation 3DS levels of not very good.
I heard like Zelda. I remember initially it was like you could play Zelda for like 3 hours.
Yeah, something like
on
that.
A single charge, yeah.
So it's not, as far as being a handheld, it kind of isn't necessarily great, because battery life for a handheld is kind of a really important feature. But I also think one of the reasons it's so successful is the Wii was part of the reason, besides the fact that like the Wii was family friendly and everything, was that the reason people bought the Wii, it wasn't because it was barely a step above the GameCube, Xbox, PS2 era of things in terms of technology, but it had a lot of games. It had that unique, not gimmick, but that unique feature of the motion controls that actually worked very, very well and were integrated into games very well, that it gave it a edge. It had something different. It had people going to it because it was like, the difference between the Xbox and the Xbox 360 and the PS3 was, it ultimately boiled down to what brand do you like, what controller feels better, I guess. But ultimately, it was a matter of, if you were comparing the two, there really, in terms of the game library, there wasn't a lot of difference. They each had their exclusives, but they're more multi-platform games versus the Wii, which I think offered a more diverse library of games that were only on the Wii, or were meant for the Wii, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the Switch is kind of recapturing that versus I think the Wii U tried to push more into multi-platform. At least from what I saw, it felt like their focus was on trying to get multi-platform games onto the Wii U, which failed, and then developers started pretty much abandoning it, which I think was another part of why the Wii U kind of collapsed. But I think that's a reason why the Switch is doing so well, is it's got those unique games again.
Yeah, and it's definitely like, think of we get a brand new Zelda and a new Mario in the same year. The whole Nindies thing is taken off as like, oh, indie games on Nintendo, like they're pushing that as like this is a feature of the system. Like you have all these awesome games that you can indie games you can take on the go, and they're really pushing. It's like when it first came out, there wasn't really much. Like everyone was kind of worried, like they don't have any games.
Yeah.
But we're at a point now that it's like, oh no, there's tons of games to play, and the more games they pump out for it, the more enticing the system is. To me, as well. Like now that there's all these games, it's like, oh, I could totally buy this system and have tons of games to play. Whereas when it first came out, it was pretty much Zelda for me personally. But like, I thought this was going to be, well, I kind of still think it is a year 2 system. It's like virtual console isn't really figured out yet. We don't know the online or the game subscription service is coming out next year. So there's a couple features that the system still doesn't have yet to make it the complete package. But it does seem like 2018 is going to be a successful year for the system, because I think once it's feature full, and obviously more games come out, like it's going to keep that ball rolling. Like they've been doing a really good job of it so far, and I don't know if anyone would have predicted it to be as successful and as it has been up until this point. But it's yeah, I don't know. Like, so I guess wrapping this up, Wilson, what do you think? What's Nintendo's plan going forward with the Switch?
Well,
just keep going, keep on trucking.
I think so, and I think it's interesting to look at it. And it's kind of the situation with the Switch is kind of inverse of the Wii U's, where they were coming off of this high of last generation, and they managed to get a lot of third parties on board. Assassin's Creed 3 and Black Ops 2 and et cetera, were at launch, and suddenly they kind of dissipated when people realized that the Wii U wasn't going to do well. And I think people came into, publishers, I guess, not speaking to the general public, but, people that are making these games looked at the Switch and went, well, you're going to have to prove us wrong, Nintendo, because the Wii U was a bomb. And you mentioned the whole Nindies situation. I think Nintendo realized that third parties were going away completely, and they said, okay, we got to get something on here besides Nintendo games, so let's latch onto these independent studios. But the Switch has come, and Nintendo's releasing games, and it's starting to become successful. And suddenly during, the Nintendo Direct, you see that Doom and Wolfenstein 2 are coming to the Switch. And are they coming later than the other versions? Yes. And, are they exclusive to the Switch? No. But I still said, whoa, because my expectations of the third-party support are so low that, and for Bethesda to come with something besides Skyrim, which is, almost a cop-out at this point, it was like, okay, if Bethesda's turning their heads and starting to make some decisions, I have to imagine that Ubisoft and Activision and EA maybe are changing their minds as well. So I think ultimately, sadly, with the Wii U, Nintendo had to make a decision at a certain point to say, we need to make games to honor the consumers that bought this system, but we have got to move our resources over to Switch, which is why you saw Super Mario 3D World, albeit a great game on Wii U, versus Super Mario Odyssey on Switch, which is clearly a game of a much bigger scale. So I think
that game looks like there's no way that game gets below like a 90 of 90. I'm going to say 94 on Metacritic.
I'd go even higher. I mean, I think it looks
yeah
phenomenal, and I think you can see it. Nintendo, they can kind of take a breath and say, okay, you want to push as hard as you want with this game because we're in this for a while. So I think really, yeah, they just keep going. I mean, I don't think that Doom and Wolfenstein 2 are what's going to sell that system. I think ultimately Nintendo systems, they'll sell well. They just really screw the pooch with the Wii U, and they're coming back and they're making the right decisions with Switch. And are they going to do Wii numbers? I don't think so. I think by the end of this, when it's all said and done, it won't be as successful, but it'll beat Wii U, it'll beat GameCube, it may even beat N64. I think they just got to keep with the great Nintendo content, and they made a better gimmick this time.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I think, Tom, going back to your initial, like, what would make you buy a Switch? Like, yeah, once the proper virtual console comes out, like, I'm all in, because that's a feature that I'm like really, really looking forward to. I'm surprised that they haven't figured it out yet. Like, I thought they would have led with some of that stuff. Like, they have all these great games, and that would have been like reason number one for a lot of people to pick a Switch up. But yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah, so it looks like we're all interested in getting a Switch at some point.
Yeah, it's Nintendo will get you someday.
Yeah, yeah, and like just wrapping up the Wii U, like I like my Wii U. I think it was worth. Well, I didn't buy one. I was gonna say it's worth the money. It was
Definitely worth the
$3.
$0 I paid for it.
Yeah, that's a back of the box quote. But yeah, looking forward to it. Hopefully I can get one in October and play some Mario Odyssey. But all right, time to wrap up the show. If you want to join us on the show, you can message me on sifted.net. I am the stand user, worst name on the site. Just like our guests did, with your mic, make, email address, your social security number, your Skype name, and what time you're available on the weekend. Also, you can tweet at us, podcast_reload. You can send me a message there if you want to get on the show. Podcastreload at gmail.com. And let's wrap the show up with our final thoughts, goodbyes, plugs, Twitter handles. So, Tom, got any plugs, Twitter handles for the people listening out there?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at MetalLoud. I tweet a lot, so just fair warning with that. As well as the YouTube channel. You can search for MetalLoud. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. And again, as on Sifted as Washed123.
Yeah, and I think I was talking with Burkhoff, Matt, the other day, and we were talking music, and then someone brought up Kesha, and I was like, oh, Washed123 actually, he did a review of Kesha's new album, and he like really liked it, and Matt could not believe it. He was like, "What?" He's like, I gotta give that guy some shit on Twitter. There's no, I don't know if he contacted you about that, but
no, he hasn't. But yeah, I really like the album. I don't generally like Kesha, but I mean, the album blew me away as far as how good it is.
And you can check out Tom's review of that on mediadissection.com?
media-dissection.com.
Okay. Yeah, cool. I've only heard one song off the album, so I can't really say much about it, but I thought Matt's reaction to that was pretty funny. All right, and Wilson, how about yourself?
So you can find me on Twitch. I plug this, I think, every time I've been on here, but I stream every single night, starting at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a variety stream, so I have a running list of every game that I've ever streamed on there. So if you're curious as to what I do, it's there for you. It's Wilson108, spelled as you would expect. So as I've mentioned before, some people from Twitch have come to the stream. It is a fantastically cool community of people. It still amazes me how nice people are on that website relative to a lot of the internet, but or at least in my stream they are. So if you like watching people play video games and me, then I recommend you come out and watch me do that. And then on Twitter, I am at Wilson_Twitch. I guess I should also warn that I tweet every time that I go live. So I tweet once a day that I'm going live. I'm trying to mix in more tweets about video games in general, but a lot of stream notifications going on there. But that is certainly the best place to reach me and talk to me in person and see my face if you're interested.
Hey, Wilson, have you played Breath of the Wild?
I have not. I don't know if I want to get the Wii U version, Switch? Or it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like, because I have a Wii U, and it's like I could get it, or I could wait for Switch. I'm probably going to wait and pick it up on Switch, but I can't not play a 3D Zelda game. That's just no, it doesn't compute.
With all these rumors of Nintendo putting in an achievement/trophy system, like it almost makes me want to. Like I played the game on the Wii U, but it almost makes me want to buy the Switch version if they retroactively put trophies in there.
Trophies get me, man. I didn't think they would, but those trophies.
Yeah, it's even if I don't get all of them, like I like trophies popping up, and I like, go into the trophy list and see what needs to be done. Like, okay, that looks like an interesting one. Let me try that.
Absolutely.
So if they put a trophy list in there and whatever they're gonna call it, badge system, whatever.
Yeah, they gotta come up with some new name now.
I mean, they should just do trophies, but like, you know, have like the platinum be like the star from Super Mario, right? And then there's like the bronze trophies are like a mushroom, and then like whatever the
fire flower
icon is like silver. You know, they could. It's easy. All right. Anyways, all right. That's all for episode 47 of Podcast Reload. You can check out our stuff on our sister site, Nickelodeon.com. And we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.